Okay, AP World History, Industrial Revolution. Yep, there's more. Actually, there's a whole lot more. Let's see what we can do here in about 30 minutes. Okay, so we left off with taking a look at the reasons why the Industrial Revolution takes off in England. And so with section 4, we're going to focus in on how this revolution then spreads beyond England. Okay, so when we jump down here to number 1, to France and Germany. Both of these are going to be countries. They're both a little bit. They're late to the Industrial Revolution. First of all, let's make sure we're really clear on that. These are both countries that, because of their political situations, particularly in Germany, but even France had some political kind of upheaval going on. They go through a period where they try to restore the monarchy, and then that fails. And anyhow, just a lot of political kind of question marks hanging over France at a point. And then with Germany, where we learned about the unification and all that, and that created some times where things were kind of up and down. So, end result, they're both late to the game in terms of the Industrial Revolution. But both countries doing a remarkable job of catching up quickly. Probably a little extra spotlight on the Germans, who take advantage of massive coal reserves that they have, and then also taking advantage of the Bessemer process that had already been created to make stainless steel, basically a stronger metal, and the German Krupp company, Krupp, which happens to still be in business, by the way. I think I owned a Krupp coffee maker at one point, but they are early on here in the steel industry, and making Germany kind of one of the leading European countries in terms of steel. The French will definitely in heavily into the coal industry, and a little bit of steel, but really the coal industry, and selling, using that coal domestically, and then selling coal to other countries as well, to power all of their machines. Over in the United States, the Industrial Revolution will quickly jump over from Europe across the Atlantic, and the United States will be pretty actively involved in this revolution from the early days on forward. The term human capital is a reference to the fact that where some other countries involved in the Industrial Revolution will struggle from time to time with workforce. That is going to be nothing the United States has to worry about. And it's going to be one of those things that allows for industry to expand even more dramatically in the United States. We're going to see these waves of immigration. I think we already talked about the Irish and the Germans coming over in the 1840s. We have another big wave after the Civil War, last part of the 19th century. A lot of Southeast Europeans, Italians that are coming over. And these are all people who are coming here looking for opportunity, and people who are, in the typical kind of like immigration pattern, are willing to work the lower paying jobs to establish themselves, and then to move themselves up. And so that is going to be a lot of what we're going to find in these rapidly expanding industrial, factories and that sort of thing in the United States. Okay, and that will, by the end of the 19th century, is going to be giving the United States a real big advantage over many other countries. Maybe other countries that are developing a lot of the technologies, but the United States jumps all over it and will improve on a lot of those technologies. But just given our size and the fact that we have so many resources ourselves, we have our own coal, it's going to really give the United States some distinct advantages. Okay, Russia, although Russia is still going to remain overwhelmingly an agricultural based country, they too will start experimenting. And they go in, like it says there, you got your coal, steel, and iron, and the outward show for the Russians in terms of their industrialization is going to be finally modernizing the transportation system in Russia. They were a little bit late to establishing rail lines, but the Trans-Siberian railway system, that, just like it sounds, cuts all the way across Siberia, is a major feat. Going incredible distances through some really, really rough territory, and the Russians being able to build that helps to kind of cement their control, political control over Siberia, that part of their empire. Okay, let's see here. Moving it on. We'll finish off with Japan on this. And with Japan, oh boy. So in the 1850s, Japan has been drug out of its isolation. The United States sails its fleet into Tokyo Harbor and pretty much either against or not their will, the United States get kind of is given the credit or whatever you want to call it for bringing Japan out of its isolation. Once Japan makes that commitment to rejoin the outside world, they immediately want to emulate the West. Okay, they're impressed by the military power that the United States shows when this big naval fleet sails into their harbor, and they very quickly begin to hone in on building a powerful military. Part of it, they see it as to protect their culture. Okay, I mean they may be open to again opening up to the world, but there's still that lingering stranger danger kind of a concept. So initially that's where the emphasis on building and pretty much focusing industrialization on military hardware, military weapons, that kind of thing. But over time, this is going to continue where this will go over into more economic strength in other industries outside of just the military. And Japan will very much be trying to model themselves on what they see as being the successful, powerful nations of the West. Okay, and that is when I use that term, the West, I'm talking pretty much of Western Europe. The United States is going to get thrown in that increasingly over time. And we'll see Japan wanting to very much recreate themselves in that kind of an image. Okay? All right. Next section we roll on into here is the role of colonialism and the Industrial Revolution. And this is kind of going back to, again, our ideas of empire building and some of our European powers, the British kind of at the lead of this, of wanting to create a worldwide empire, global empire of colonies scattered all across the globe. And again, colonies that are created out of that model of mercantilism, colonies that are going to be making money for Great Britain. Okay, Great Britain isn't establishing these colonies because they're on some kind of a goodwill tour to bring tea and all the little British accents to the world. That this is about part of it is political power, part of it is competition, but part of it, and a big part of it is profit, making money from all of this. Okay, so let's take a look at India. So India, with and without British colonial help, has through the early into the middle part of the 19th century, is actually developing a lot of its own industries. And here's kind of your examples, three of them in there. Shipbuilding, because of just India's location and lots of ports and harbors. They do develop their own ironworks, and so for developing metals. And then because of the cotton that's grown in India, the textile industry is going to be one that industrializes just like it had in England, and will also be a big money maker. Hold on just a sec here. Back. Don't forget the British East India Company is still the joint stock that has so much power over India by this point, and has and competition in India has been pretty much edged out. That on the wane, going back to the 7 Years' War, and so what we see during this time period is the British East India Company transitioning from this significant economic influence to the British government beginning to get involved and turning India into, instead of just kind of almost like an economic colony, instead making it a full-fledged colony. By 1858, it will be established as a colony under British Crown rule, and that is the beginning of what comes to be known as the British Raj, R-A-J, Raj, and that is a term that that refers to this British political, economic, and military dominance over India. They will see India very quickly as the crown jewel of their empire, the biggest money maker, their most important empire in many regards. Okay, and really, from number one here, we'll get number two in here. We just see this increase in control as the economic importance of India becomes more and more important, and Britain wanting to make sure that there's no competition, there's no other European countries that are going to get involved with this, and that they control everything. I think that even gets us down to the bottom of this slide here. That's right. The taxes, everything is done in such a way so that it comes at the expense of the Indian people themselves, and has an impact on India's domestic economy. But on the flip side of that, it is to basically to line the pockets of the British Empire and the British government. Everything is set up to advantage. Again, this leans back on that mercantilism model. To advantage Britain at the expense of India, and so and we'll see where eventually this will create the conditions where Indians will revolt, because they, while the British look down on them as being, these darker people who don't have the same value as us, and they're here to work for us. The Indian people fully realize what is happening to them, and that that they're being dominated by a foreign country that has military control over them, has the military ability to control them, and is profiting from them, and doing so at their expense. Okay, all right. That's when we talk about the complications that get in here. All right, section 5. We just are going to make like this run at all these different elements of the Industrial Revolution. Lots of examples of some specifics as far as what we're talking about here. So you're going to bump into this in different resources. Sometimes you're going to see this first wave of the Industrial Revolution referred to as the coal revolution. And that is because after the first initial, the use of hydropower, things like that, and then Watt's invention, we're going to see if I'm getting ahead of myself here. We'll jump on that in a minute. But James Watt and his invention of the steam engine will require coal to power it. And so some people refer to it as the coal revolution because of that. Sometimes you'll bump into it and it'll just be referred to as the first industrial revolution, okay, with the second phase that will pop up in the later part of the 19th century. The coal revolution actually starts in the 18th century, okay, and this is an image of the first steam engine as created by Mr. James Watt that you see pictured over there. And like I said, the novelty of this and really the significance and the importance of it is it was powered by coal. You'd burn coal and then use that heat to create boil water to create the steam, and that gets everything going. This freed factories from having to be nearby water sources. Okay. You did not have to rely on that paddle wheel to power the pulleys to make the textile machines work and all that kind of a thing. Factories could be dropped anywhere once the steam engine is introduced. And while there's a lot of controversy over whether James Watt really is the true inventor, we're not going to get bogged down in that. Most histories give him the credit, whether he deserves it or not. I don't know. We'll just run with it. Okay. The major consequence of this that we see in the early 19th century is the invention of the steam train and steamships. Okay, I underline steamships there just because when it comes to international trade, this is going to be a bit of a game changer. When it comes to transoceanic travel, up to this point, it has everything to do with wind currents and sea currents and all that sort of thing. The invention of the steam engine and then the steamship as a result of that means that you don't have to rely on the wind. You have an engine that can power a ship against wind. And they totally, again, it is a game changer. Okay, yeah. Who needs wind? Who needs wind when you have a steam engine? In effect, is what we're talking about. So it eliminates that dependence on wind, and to a lesser extent, that understanding and knowledge that people had learned by then about ocean currents and all that sort of thing. Okay. But it does create, while the reliance on wind goes away, the reliance on coaling stations totally increases. And so what you're going to see is a lot of these countries who are deeply embedded in worldwide trade having to establish outposts, what they call coaling stations, globally. Having to contract sometimes with countries to be able to have little stations set up on their coastlines, or allowing for their for foreign ships to stop in and be able to purchase that coal. Empires like the British try to set up their own coaling stations wherever they can, because once these ships run out of coal, their steam engines are useless to them. And so, as they are traveling around and getting goods from place to place, eventually, people from place to place, they have to have that ready supply of coal. And that's where the coaling stations come in. Okay. So, it's trade-offs. It's trade-offs, right? And then over time, by the time we get a little bit deeper into the 19th century, coal is really what's going to open the door to the iron industry. And again, the use of coal to fire the machines, the engines that are going to be producing iron and eventually steel. And these are going to be the products that are used to build steam trains and steam engines. We're going to see the world beginning to step away from everything made of wood and seeing metal and steel and iron, be the way that of the world when it comes to transportation, when it comes to factories, when it comes to pretty much anything making up the increasingly modern world. All right. Second industrial revolution. Okay, so if that coal revolution represents the first, here's your second industrial revolution, and this is where we really see the world begin to bloom and start to create a world that looks a little more familiar to the world you and I live in. Okay, so there's your time frame that you got there, and I'd mentioned it already, but the Bessemer process is the invention. His first name escapes me at the moment, but it's named after its inventor, and it's kind of like it's this creation. The Bessemer process makes this alloy of iron and carbon, and combining those together, I don't know the exact science of it, but that's what produces steel. And so, whether we see the steel mills in Europe and particularly in Germany, eventually coming over here to the United States, and particularly in Pennsylvania, where there's lots of coal available. Pittsburgh is going to be a major steel city. Where do you think the Steelers get their name from? Come on. You're going to see this industry spread very, very rapidly. You're also going to see oil refining and the increasing importance of oil beginning to develop. The use of kerosenes, of gasoline, things like that. And so very quickly, what will become the commercialization of oil drilling, of the building of oil wells. And the United States will be leading that race for a while. We will find that we have vast reserves of oil under the surface here in our country. And Pennsylvania, it's in a couple of those areas in the far Midwest, and then eventually areas out here in the West will be found to be very, very rich in oil. And so another one, there will be another fuel along with coal, fuel of the revolution, and particularly of the second industrial revolution, and a product of it. Okay, we will see electricity become more and more of a reality as we get into the last part of the 20th century. And again, this is where the world begins to modernize. This is where factories suddenly can run almost 24 hours a day. because now you don't have to worry about the issue of lighting. You can light a factory up and you can work, double shifts. You can bring people into work through the night and then have another shift come in and work during the day. This is going to increase profits. This is going to, kind of power along, capital and capitalism, as we've already been talking about. This all comes in together. It's all pieces of it. Okay, big improvements in the communication front. We'll have the telephone. Alexander Graham Bell in it's 1875, 76, who will invent the basics that will become the phone. Um, the radio. Marconi invents the radio. So communications is going to get a massive boost coming out of all of this. Okay, again, like I said, getting us to the modern world. Okay, and some would say that again, kind of some proto globalization. This is going to make it easier for it all to happen. Global trade, migration, people moving from place to place. Whether it's the communications, the transportation, all these things is starting to speed the world up in a way that when you think for centuries and centuries and centuries, life had this very predictable kind of just pace to it, and now all of a sudden things are accelerating in just a really either exciting, dramatic way to some people, or a very frightening way to some other people. All right. I think we'll finish off here. I don't know. Let's see. I might be able to get another, and I might be able to get a full slide in here. More innovations coming out of the second industrial revolution that we can talk about. The telegraph, actually, first experiments are early in the in the 19th century, but has been perfected by the mid-century and going into the later part of the century. Before radio, telegraph, and the radio and telegraph is what is used for communications. It's by telegraph that here out in the West Coast that we learn about the assassination of Abraham Lincoln in 1865. And then, that just expands from there. But then the telephone kicks in for the last quarter of the century, and radio adding on to that. Building of the Transcontinental Railroad here in the United States completed in 1869. And then from there just grows, the railroad linkages that connect the East Coast to the West Coast, and rapidly bring the United States in line with this, the most powerful powerful industrial countries of the world, particularly some of those European countries. Okay. And well, I guess jumping into what I'm just mentioning, this is going to be a period of where the United States is growing in a way that, will not come into full display until the 20th century, and particularly when we get to the world wars. Some people realize it early on that this is a time period. What you guys will learn about in American History or APWH is the Gilded Age, where the United States is just exploding in terms of industrialization, population. We're booming. And there's parts of the world where maybe it's not as noticeable, but trust me, early 20th century, the world will learn. Okay, all right. Rise of capital. There we go. With all of this going on, is going to be the ideas of how to finance all of this innovating and all this industry that is happening, and yes, we will get Mr. Marks involved in this eventually. He's maybe kind of jumping the gun just a bit here right now. So what we're going to see is, along with the growth of all this industry, is going to be businesses and the business opportunities that come out of all this. Remember when I gave you the first example of what capital was? The idea of creating wealth to create more wealth. I gave you the little factory example. We were making little widgets, and we're going to see that going on here, where people come up with an idea, they build a factory, it's successful, they use their profits to build more factories, and just on and on it goes. Okay, and this is going to be the first time that we see the rise of something you and I Well, I'll be the first to admit I'm a slavish. I'm a victim. I mean, no, I shouldn't call myself a victim. I'm totally in control, and I choose to be a consumer. But consumerism is this idea of an economy that's based on people buying stuff. Not just the stuff that they need, but the stuff they want. And this is going to be a huge shift, global shift, where this industrial and revolution really, sinks in deep. Where people begin to move away from a world of, well, you just have the things you need, to get by in life. And the idea of, well, no, I want to buy this thing because it'll make my life easier. I'm going to buy some of these machines. I'm going to buy a washing machine, an automatic washing machine. I'm going to buy a vacuum cleaner. I mean, this is all going to be things that are going to be, offshoots of the Industrial Revolution and are going to open up a whole world of things for people to buy. Okay. And that is what consumerism is a reference to. And the growth of consumerism is a direct outgrowth of the Industrial Revolution. Okay. And then another outgrowth of that is going to have all kinds of complexities involved in it is going to be the need for natural resources. Many of these industries, they operate off of resources that come from good old Mother Earth. And, whether it is coal, whether it's timber, whether it's papyrus, whether it is palm oil, I mean, the list will go on and on and on. Rubber, and in some of the countries involved in the Industrial Revolution, the United States will be kind of an outlier in that we will have many of the natural resources that we need, but many of the European countries will not. Okay. By the time we even get to the early 19th century, the British have pretty much logged off all their trees. There's no timber left. And so they're going to have to look elsewhere. And that's going to be where we're going to see this expansion of colonialism. And soon enough, when we see it supersize, what we call imperialism. And it is going to be, this scooping up of territories that can be politically, militarily dominated by more powerful countries for pretty much the sole purpose. I mean, there'll be a political, a competitive end to it, but pretty much for the sole purpose of stripping those countries of natural resources needed to power factories. And a lot of those factories will be in Europe. But Japan will jump on eventually. They will need natural resources they don't have in their little island nation. And they will be looking for countries in Asia that they can easily, conquer for their natural resources. It won't be, I'm not going to just dump it all on the Europeans' shoulders. But that will definitely be going into the future. Will play a bigger and bigger role in this, and then will create kind of some of the disasters that we will see in the 20th century. All right. Okay. That takes us all the way up to section 6. And we're going to save that one for in class, and we will talk about government and its increasing role during the Industrial Revolution. We'll just that will be one that we can catch together in the classroom. This gives you quite a bit to work with. Gives you most of the nuts and bolts of the first and second Industrial Revolution. So we'll call that good progress. Okay. All right. That'll do us for now. And see you soon. Bye.